Got it.
You have to push continue for some of us.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Oh.
Matt, good to see you. Or good to see a fake Matt.
Hi, good evening.
That's the
Haven't
Bill
combed your
Malone.
hair yet or put on your makeup, right?
Yeah, completely the makeup. I just finished a long work day, so
Sit back
Hi,
and relax.
Cynthia.
We're very happy you're here. Hi, Cynthia. Good to see
Hi, how is everyone?
Hi.
Hi.
Janet Clapp, are we waiting for you? Are you coming?
No, I'm here. I'm similar to Matt. I've had a really long day. So,
Oh, okay.
yes.
You also didn't put on your makeup. That's all right.
I just want to relax. Thank you. It's so glad to see all of you. Yay.
Good to see you too. So I think we're going to start. As you all know, my name is Liz Mueller, and I am working with Michelle and Regina and Judy Bacon on the Social Justice Committee. And I wanted to have a kind of different meeting tonight because through a quirk of circumstance, actually, I was going to say I found Geoff Curtis, but the truth is Geoff Curtis found us through our Black Lives Matter session, which we sponsored this winter. And so we got in touch with one another, and Karen Strickland and I have been participating in a variety of sessions with Geoff and other people in New Jersey together. And we were so excited about it that we wanted all of you to have a chance to meet Geoff as well. And so that is our purpose. But before we introduce Geoff, I'd like, this is a second little publicity stunt on my part, but I'd like Grace Modla to do our opening prayer, which is one that she posted on her Visio Divina Walking the Path page, I think last week, and I thought it particularly relevant for our session tonight. Grace?
Thanks, Liz. So I'll share the screen and share the image, and I'll read the quote. Can everyone see what I just put up on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So that day's word and this day's word is forward. And the quote is as follows. The trouble with if only is that it doesn't change anything. It keeps the person facing the wrong way, backward instead of forward. It wastes time. In the end, if you let it become a habit, it can become a real roadblock, an excuse for not trying anymore. And that was by Arthur Gordon. And the image, the artwork by Christian Schlow. So.
And once again, our word is forward.
Forward.
I hope we keep that in our minds as we listen to Reverend Curtis tonight. So, Geoff, you and I didn't get an official bio from you, so I'm going to make something up that I think is more or less correct, but you're going to have a lot of time to correct me if not all my dates are on the money. But so Reverend Geoff Curtis is an Episcopalian priest. He served parishes in Newark and in Hoboken, beginning in the early 80s. And while he was serving in Newark, he became involved with an organization that has been doing community organizing around the world for, now this is where I'm not sure, many decades. And as a result of this training that he received in community organizing, became a founding member of an organization called New Jersey Together. And the idea behind this community organizing is that we are stronger and more powerful with more voices. And so the goal is to try to connect people from faith-based and community organizations to try to affect change. And so fortunately for us, after 30 or 40 years in the ministry, Geoff retired to Bradley Beach, New Jersey. And so he has taken it on as a retirement project to try to establish a Monmouth Together organization, similar to what they were able to do in Newark and in Jersey City, and also what they've just started doing in Morris County. And so we're at the very beginning of the journey here in Monmouth County, but I invited him to come and tell us something about his experiences, his story, and why he wants to do something in Monmouth County as well. So with that, I'd like to introduce Reverend Geoff Curtis.
Thank you, Liz. So I grew up in Bergen County in the 60s and went to seminary. And after seminary, I ended up in Newark. So the Episcopal Diocese in Newark and New Jersey are the two dioceses that form the state. When I went to Newark, I got involved in some community organizing that was going on in Newark. And we became very interested in what is called the Industrial Areas Foundation, which is the original organization that was founded by Saul Linsky in the Back of the Yards movement in Chicago. He basically learned a lot of techniques about organizing from participating with churches and other community groups that were struggling to figure out how can we bring about change in our neighborhood and in the community and ultimately in the city of Chicago itself. So I became connected to it in what would be the second generation of leadership. Ed Chambers became the executive director of the organization, and he came to Newark and began talking with clergy about the possibility of organizing a project in Newark. At the same time, they were beginning to organize in Brooklyn, in Queens, South Bronx, along with Baltimore, Rochester, doing a little bit of organizing in Pittsburgh. And it's kind of the beginning of a whole network of now these kind of community-based organizations that are scattered across our country. We're part of an East Coast group of organizations from Boston to New York to Baltimore to Washington, D.C., down into North Carolina, over to St. Louis. There's a lot of different kind of group networks working on the tools that come out of the Industrial Areas Foundation. My experience was that when I got to Hoboken, which became my first pastorate, I was the assistant in Newark until 1980, and then was invited to come to Hoboken to a church that was in terrible shape. Actually, there were three of them. And Hoboken had just begun its gentrification process. I was actually trained first in 1979. At that point, what IF was doing was 10-day training where clergy and lay leaders would go away for 10 days to usually a retreat center and go through a process, a pretty intense process of learning the tools of community organizing. And so I came to Hoboken with those tools and began to use them in my ministry, particularly in reaching out into the community. So for example, one of the first things that I did arriving in Hoboken was to go and interview every single clergy person that I could find in Hoboken to try to understand from them what was going on in Hoboken and what they felt was going on in their congregation, and where they felt they would like to work together around particular issues or concerns that were going on. One of the big ones at the time was the displacement issues that were going on because Hoboken had changed its housing rules so that what were called single room occupancy housing was no longer a viable option for people. Those buildings were being sold and returned to brownstones. And so there was a whole group of men that were former railroad workers, former dock workers who were being displaced. And a lot of them had obviously alcohol problems. They were single. And so we got into talking about how to set up a shelter for the homeless, which began in the winter of 1982 and now has become over the time a full 24/7 operation that does all kinds of different things. And but it grew slowly, and that work was what brought the churches together with some other groups, and now there's a strong business community support. But it taught me how to reach out into the community, how to work in partnership, how to listen to other people and what they're concerned about, and begin to find common interests and common concerns, and how to research an issue in a way that we find out, who has the power to change the issue. So part of what the organizing is about is finding the change that needs to happen and who can make the change happen, or how can the change become a possibility. And so a lot of research goes in around an issue, and then we identify the way in which we are going to confront or challenge the powers that be into the change possibilities. So over the last 40 years, in a sense, I have worked with a variety of groups in Hudson County to bring about the possibility of change in those. I've got to plug myself in. I didn't realize I'm low on battery. To bring about change in Hudson County. We began very simply. We began with stuff in Jersey City about cleaning up empty lots. We began about the drug situation around public schools. We talked with people about land use issues that were going on in their neighborhoods. We talked about cleaning up and getting the Public Works Department to be more effective in its picking up or in its being able to maintain cleanliness in the city. Through those little actions, we developed opportunity for people to learn that they could win actions. If they could identify an action, research it, develop it, that they could actually win. And those little wins then turned into large projects that we've worked on. And one of the big ones for me that I got heavily invested in was there were two sites that produce chromium in Jersey City. And those two sites were vacant and have been vacant once the industry left. Not only are they vacant or more vacant, but they had distributed chromium as landfill. And so we had run into some issues around cancer that was in certain neighborhoods as a result of growing vegetables and other things in those in their soil, in soil that had been brought to their houses to do landfill. And it became a big racial problem because obviously the landfill areas were where many of the African-American community end up being put as a place for their housing, as a low income kind of situation. So these are the kind of issues that we want to now think about in Monmouth County. New Jersey Together is really, its core is Jersey City Together, which has been in existence in one form or another since 1986. It's a group of churches with some nonprofits that work together. Their big issues are around public education and getting that budget to be fully funded. They're working on food by identifying in some of the poorer communities supermarkets that are not producing or bringing in quality food. They're working on youth issues, particularly around how to provide services for youth. We're working on the criminal justice system. working with the prosecutor's office to try to get criminal justice in an effective way of people being released from the Hudson County Jail, the state jails. How are they being re-entered into the community? Does the community have ways of getting support for them? So those are some of the kind of issues that we're working on. The land issue that I talked a little bit about, which was a cleaning up of a Honeywell site and a PPG site. Now we're in the battle about, once this land is getting cleaned up, how much affordable housing, what percentage of the land will be used for affordable housing. And we think we've won a victory with getting 30% of the housing that's going to be put on these two large sites to be affordable. So Jersey City Together, in much of its work, realizes that what we do in all across the state of New Jersey is that we move from the local municipality to the governor's office. This is a unique state in which the governor has more power than any other governor in the United States. So much of what happens in these issues is that we find ourselves pretty quickly realizing that the governor's office has as much influence in much of the policy that goes on in this state as the local municipality does. And out of that, we had other leaders, church leaders, nonprofit leaders come to us and say, well, can you come and work with us? So we've gotten people from Morris County that have asked, can you come and work with us? People from Monmouth County came and said, can you come and work with us? Can you teach us the training for organizing for change? Can you work with us so that we can build an organization in our county? So we've been building some county-wide organizations in Essex, in Morris. We've got a small group in Somerset County and a group in Monmouth County that are talking about it. But for example, Liz is going to attend a training tomorrow, of which 71 people, we're stunned, 71 people have signed up to begin a 3-day training. And there are people from all across the state. So obviously this kind of interest in this kind of community organizing is growing across the state. And we're hoping that, you know, we can build 30 congregations in Morris County, in Monmouth County, that will begin sometime next year to actually form and initiate an organization.
Someone comes in.
Because it's raining.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I just didn't want to talk over. So the way that the organizing works is that we are developing leaders inside congregations who form a core team to work on the issues that are local to that congregation. They can sometimes be internal issues, but we're also pushing congregations to talk out in their community to identify issues in the community. So when I did my work in Hoboken, for example, one of the things that I would do once a year was an exercise called Hopes and Dreams, Fears and Consequences, which got the congregation to spend some time talking about what are the hopes of this congregation, what are the fears of this congregation, what are some of the dreams that have happened in this congregation, and then some of the consequences, to be able to get at stories. The real work of this organizing is to have people tell stories. It's one thing to say that we have a homeless problem. It's another thing to have a group of homeless people tell us their story and help other people identify that this is not just a theory or a concept. It's actually a human being situation that we're trying to change. And so bringing those stories to the forefront and helping the stories make us come alive are really the opportunity that the organizing process happens. And stories come to being through what we call relational meetings. So we teach people how to do a 20 to 30 minute relational meeting in which you're not coming with an agenda. You're coming to listen to the person and explore what this person's we use the language of self-interest. So what their self-interest is their family, their self-interest are their hobbies, their self-interest are what do they like to do, their self-interest are what are they concerned about. So it's a way of doing a relational meeting in which, you know, you're not asking the person to serve as an usher, or you're not coming with an agenda to say, I'm going to try to talk you into doing this. You're really trying to listen to what is the person interested in doing. And then being able to say, I've met 3 people over the last 2 or 3 months that are all interested in the same thing. Can I bring you 3 together? And can we see what the next step is for the 3 of you to begin to work on this together and figure it out? And then when you come to the congregation, you're saying, you know, Mildred, John, and Harry are all wanting to do this. Are you willing to support them in their work? It's almost like you bring them forward after they've come up with an idea of what they want to work on, and the congregation, in sense, empowers them to go out and do that work. So the relational meeting is really the backbone of this community organizing work. And we really encourage people to learn to do the relational meeting and then to practice it in their daily life, not just for necessarily this work, but all across wherever you are, in any of the organizations or groups that you're participating in, to be able to help people discover what they're passionate about, and to be able to put that passion into practice, to be able to help people understand that there are other people who have similar interests and concerns, and maybe they can begin to work together in developing those interests and concerns. So, for example, in Jersey City, the whole thing around the full funding of the public education budget was done because a group of parents said, this is our issue. Our children are not getting a fair shake. And a lot of it has to do with the inability to get a fully funded budget. So their kids go into school in Jersey City that their water fountains don't work in their school, or so in one case, even the bathrooms don't work properly. And they've had a lot of their services taken away. And it's all about a funding issue, because if the budget was fully funded, these kind of issues would start to go away. So that's what we're asking. So I guess I'm saying to you all that we're in a place right now where we're beginning this process. We're going to go towards a listening campaign in the early part of the fall that will both be in a listening campaign inside a local congregation, as well as some opportunities to do listening in the larger community that you're all a part of. We'll bring it back together of what we've heard, and in December, we will put this together and identify some of the key issues that are coming out of our common listening campaign. And then we'll move towards a founding of an organization sometime early next year, in which we'll try to bring together 500 people from an assortment of organizations to establish Monmouth Together as part of New Jersey Together, and to begin that work of organizing for change in Monmouth County. I've said a lot. Why don't I stop there and see if there are questions, or Liz or Karen, or if you think there's something I need to say that I didn't say. Go ahead, Liz.
Maybe you could, okay, I'm good. Maybe you could just give folks an idea of the churches, synagogues, and nonprofits that we're working with in that you are currently working with in Monmouth County.
So we've got from Baptist to UCC to Episcopal to Methodist, Quaker, interest in this organizing, along with some nonprofits, a lot of them dealing with the homelessness issue or housing issues, along with social service issues that they're very interested in figuring out how to network together to build power. The work is to be able to not just work kind of solo, but to be able to come together to build power. So we have churches in Red Bank, we have churches as far down as Manasquan, Asbury Park, over to Freehold. And many of these leaders that we're meeting with know that they've got to begin now to reach out to bring others in. So we're optimistic that we could get as many as 60 to 70 organizations by next year into this process of sharing power and building power together.
Liz, you got to unmute.
If any of the rest of you have questions, don't follow my bad example, but unmute yourself and raise your hand, and Michelle will call on you.
Let's see. Okay, Karen. Karen Chesney, you can
Hey,
unmute yourself.
Yeah, Geoff, thank you for introducing yourself like that in this organization. We did a similar process in our church, and that's the group that you're talking to. As a result of that listening process, just among the members of our church. So, what do you see as like, I guess, a vision? You know, what is this organization going to do in 2 to 5 years? I know Liz told me I haven't been able to be in any of the meetings, but she told me that you're looking for long-term change. And what would be some examples of that?
Well, long-term change would be that the group of churches and community groups have come together and, for example, with affordable housing, they have expanded the opportunity to build affordable housing in Monmouth County. And that perhaps would be in 3 or 4 different locations. But we would come together, identify land, and really challenge the county to consider, you know, where affordable housing can work. It's got to be connected to a community. And that would be a big dream. And now we've taken a long time in Hudson County to be able to do this. So, but I would see a group of us being able to work out that dream. What another issue that's come up and is the whole issue around mental health services. A number of people have identified that as a key issue. I don't know enough about it yet. We would need to do more research to understand what exactly are the causes of the mental health issue and who can actually work to solve the mental health issue. But that clearly has come up repeatedly in our initial conversations with people to try to figure out how to help people and, you know, provide the resources that people need for the mental health crisis that's clearly upon us. There's obviously in Monmouth County, there's the disparity in the public education system that the urban kind of communities would raise as they struggle to figure out how to deal with that. And I know only in passing that there are 2 county commissioners, one in a Republican Party, one in a Democratic Party, that want to reconsider how the public education system is organized in Monmouth County to try to deal with some of these disparities. And that may be an issue that we identify with and begin to work on. But it's going to come out of people who want to organize for change. And, you know, we've got pastors that are participating along with lay people in, you know, smaller community groups. Some are working for nonprofits, and they themselves see that Monmouth County is not working together. There's too many silos, I guess is the best way to, as I'm hearing it. And that the more we get to know each other, the more we can attack those silos and begin to address some of the issues around funding and around how to get people to them. I volunteer at the reentry program that operates out of Neptune. So Monmouth County has part of the New Jersey reentry program. And one of the issues that they constantly are talking about is the lack of public transportation. It's almost impossible unless you have a car to get around Monmouth County. So they can't get access to jobs because the jobs are not in the urban areas as much anymore. And so there's a whole issue around transportation. in Morris County, there's an agency that delivers people to their sites, a transportation agency, and there's been some question about the effectiveness of that transportation system. So Morris County is one, trying to hold the agency accountable to a better service. But again, if that doesn't work, then they're going to begin to explore, well, how do we get people who need transportation? How do we get them a better service so that they can have access to, you know, getting to appointments, going out shopping? I mean, there's all kinds of issues around that. So in the conversations that I've been having, those are the kind of things that I am hearing. And I think we'll hear a lot more as we get into the listening campaign. But the question is, you know, for me to organize for change, we need a lot of people to be in a room together to hold our officials accountable. It's more than just individual relationships. It's about a group of people working together. So when we meet in Hudson County with the mayor of Jersey City, for example, or with our Congress people, we have anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people in the room, so that they get a sense that there's a group here working with for power. And of course, our reputation in being able to win issues has now developed in a way that they take us seriously. And we're working together. Whenever we call an official in to be held accountable, we've worked with them for 2 or 3 months before the meeting to say, this is what we're going to ask you. Are you comfortable with the ask? Are you willing to say yes? If we're not asking it the correct way, come back at us, tell us how you would phrase solving the problem. And those are, so we really have developed good, accountable relationships with our public figures. That's the challenge. So that they then hold their staff accountable. I mean, a lot of it is about accountability. You know, everybody who works in these kind of agencies has a list a mile long and can't get to it all. So we're trying to help them prioritize what's the most important thing that needs to get done. And when you say, yes, you will do it, to hold them accountable to get it done. That's the kind of work that we do. Thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you. Karen Strickland, you can go ahead.
I raised my hand for 2 reasons. One is I wanted to tell people how to raise your hand because I couldn't figure out how to do it. So you go to participants and then you look on your name, and then there are 3 dots beside your name, and then you click on one of the dots beside your name, and then one of them is the hand. That's the way I got it on mine. So I don't know if other people have trouble raising their hand, but it took me a while to figure it out. But one of the reasons why I was so excited about what Reverend Curtis is doing is because I got involved in this because of the racial justice subcommittee. And so many of those problems are huge, huge, huge problems that I feel like, you know, we had our little meetings and we're talking among ourselves. It's like, what can we do in our little, you know, in our little congregation? And so the idea, so when Reverend Curtis was talking about all the little things that there, in some ways, it's like I see it as kind of growing bigger to become a part of a bigger organization to kind of be able to drill down then on specific things, but then having a lot more people there who can help us do that. So I thought it was the opportunity to be a part of something that's could actually make a change and connect us to something bigger than ourselves was very exciting, I thought. Not really a question, just a comment.
Thanks, that's great.
Thank you. Terry, you can go ahead, and then Regina.
So if I could put in my 2 cents about mental health, I've been a therapist in private practice for many years, and myself and all of my colleagues have never been busier since the pandemic.
Right.
And I think that there's a couple of factors there. Not only were people anxious and stressed, but during the pandemic, insurance companies were required to allow people to do telemedicine, pay for it, and they were covering co-pays. So that made it a lot easier for people to come into therapy if they had insurance. The big problem is people who don't have good insurance or who have like New Jersey Family Care have very few choices for mental health. So I don't think there's been funding for the community mental health centers for many years. I think that that's a big problem. So that's my 2 cents.
It's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Regina, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, I tried the 3 dot thing, Karen, it just did not work. So I
Jan-
raised my hand the old-fashioned way. Anyway, my question is, I would like a little clarification. My understanding is that people from different churches, different organizations would meet if they had a similar interest to look at these issues. But some of these issues are very local, like affordable housing, some education issues can be very local, and that the local town governments have to, need to make these decisions. So are we, as Homedale people, will we be working on issues facing Red Bank? Is that how it would work?
You'll be working on both your local issues as well as what might become countywide issues.
Okay, so we're assuming these issues are things that will be brought further up the chain. Basically, they're bigger issues than.
Right. Well, the issue would be affordable housing. How Homedale solves affordable housing might be different than how Red Bank solves affordable housing. But the idea is to frame it so that both are working together and can support each other in doing whatever the affordable housing that needs to be done is. Is that helpful?
Well, so both municipalities are working together, you're saying? Or the group-
Yeah, if we can get the municipalities, I would think that some of this is a state issue.
Okay,
If
so
you're
we're
going to
looking
solve
further up.
affordable housing, I think you'll find yourself in state government sooner than you can imagine. Because the money's going to come down through the state.
Okay,
And the state's going to prioritize where it's going to put affordable housing.
okay, so the bottom line is we'll be thinking bigger than I'm assuming right now. Okay, thank you.
Right. You'll be in partnership with people who think similar to what you're thinking about, but it may appear differently in different contexts.
Okay, makes
But
sense.
we want Homedale part of your congregation's role is to identify what are the Homedale local issues that we need to organize for change. What has to change in Homedale?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So Janice, and then after Janice, Eric.
So I've been involved with a nonprofit organization called the Community Outreach Group many years. I helped start it up with a group of people. And we had been recently working several years ago with United Way, as did many other nonprofits. Is United Way on board with this at all?
I don't think we've talked to United Way. I don't think that name has been given to me as someone to talk to.
Okay.
Be glad to talk to them, but I'm not sure now there may be other clergy people that are talking to them that I don't know about, but I have not heard that name yet.
Okay, so the part that we played as food pantries was related to people who were in need of help, not just food, but they needed jobs and they needed transportation. And you mentioned several of the things that we talked about and told United Way were problems in our county. Housing, affordable housing. There is an organization that we worked with. Beverly Scarano was one of the key people in that organization. And we're hopeful that we can introduce this to Community Outreach Group, which has 11 churches and a mosque, and as an interim, as an organization that's helping in Monmouth County. And so one of the things that you hadn't mentioned, but I thought was an issue, although I think the current president has put it up for a priority, is childcare. I know our organization supports a childcare facility in Red Bank and gives yearly donations to also a childcare in Keensburg, because they have infant care there. And the single women, especially, who suffer greatly in Monmouth County and throughout the country, want to go back to work, but the issue of the expense of childcare actually doesn't allow them to do that. So I see that as one of the issues that could be discussed. And you didn't bring in politics about it. Our country is so divided. When the word politics comes up, it's like scary. I'm hoping that the way this is organized, that when we get to the issues and call in our representatives, that we can make some headway with it. It's very, very difficult, I think, in this environment today. But I applaud you for what you're doing, and certainly I'm excited about joining something like this.
Great. We are very nonpartisan. So we work with both sides of the aisle.
That's good to hear.
We're working on issues. So childcare is an issue that requires much more funding than they are able to get. And so our challenge would be to identify not just a particular center, but how do we get funding into childcare so that either parents have access to the funding so they can do the childcare, or we have legitimate childcare centers that are, can stratify income levels and being able to accept people. There are different ways of doing it, but that's the challenge. For us, it's about identifying the issue and then researching the issue so that we understand what needs to be done. And usually it's around holding government leaders accountable, not partisan. Just you're the one that's elected. You're the one that has the access to the decision making. So let's get some decisions made. Thank you for the question.
All right, Eric, and then after Eric, Carol Schreier.
My question kind of goes around transparency. And first of all, and maybe I just didn't do my homework, but do you have a specific place that you have come up with already before you, for instance, come to other people in like groups like this that has a list of, say, let's just keep it easy, your top 10 lists of these are things that were like you outlined with us, and then what success would look like, a measurable success, and then the things that there are ways to get information about that currently in whatever subheading you're interested in. Like, first of all, do you have a list somewhere that is transparent so that we, just as a single person, me calling somebody and saying, hey, I'm part of the Social Justice Committee of UCC, and we just found out that there's this kind of area that you can go and get hooked into, going back to, like, say, what Janice was talking about with Calico Cat. If hunger is something within Monmouth County that we're not aware of, where we can quickly make a change. You're talking about a lot of, obviously, yeah, we're all not in roles that can turn the levers of power, but we all can make a change quickly if we know about where we can do that. So my question is, if there is a place, that then becomes, okay, do we have a list of these are the churches that are participating? And if not, we, again, as a body of the UCC, have friends in other churches that have social justice issues, because it's obviously a hot topic with everybody that at least is in a church system, that we can say, hey, come over here, rather than just come in and join us with 20 people that they're unaware of. Am I making myself?
Yeah, no, you're very clear. I just want to come at it in a different way. So I want to give you a different answer. We're coming in to help you work on what your issues are. We're not coming with an agenda. Just like we don't do a relational meeting with an agenda, we want to hear what your agenda is.
But you must have goals, yeah?
my goal is to develop leaders, to empower congregations to be stronger in their public action, and to find a group of congregations and nonprofits that want to organize for change. I don't want to tell them what the change is. I want them to tell me what they want to change. If you want to see where change is going on, you can go to the website NJ Together, and it will help you understand the kind of work that we're doing in various parts of New Jersey. If you want to see what's going on across the country, you can go to IAF.com, the Industrial Areas Foundation, and you can see about 40, 50 different organizations across the country and the various issues they're working on. But the issues are determined by the organization. We are not coming with any issues. We have lots of experience with issues, so we can help people who say, I want to work on immigration, or I want to work on affordable housing, or I want to work on criminal justice. We've got a lot of expertise around it, but we don't want to come and tell, your congregation what you have to do.
Well, so let's whittle it back down to Monmouth County. Tell us how we know the congregations within Monmouth County that are choosing this path that we can partner with, talk with, so if we do focus down, I like let's look at our county first before we, go all the way. But we feel, I think at UCC in Homedale that we have that committee, and correct me if I'm wrong, Karen and Liz, but they've been very good about, kind of putting a pin or a funnel to us and our congregation of trying to let people know those things. So I'm trying to find out from you, is there a magnifying glass where we can say who in Monmouth County are we, a list of organizations that are considering this kind of thing, or that you're talking with?
Yeah, we have a list. I think Liz may have seen part of that list because she's been participating in the clergy conversations. We're at the very beginning of building an organization, though. No one has made a commitment. I mean, I can give you names of congregations that are talking, but no one has made a commitment to the organization yet because there's not an organization to make a commitment to yet. We're just in the very beginning of these conversations. So we've got Lutheran churches, Episcopal churches, Methodist churches. We've got the synagogue. We've got some Baptist churches. And then, as I said, we've got some nonprofits like Lunch Break is involved. The YMCA in Red Bank's involved. And we're just in Interfaith Neighbors is involved. I mean, we're just doing conversations right now. And we're just trying to hear what agendas might be, because we're not coming with one. And I'm a volunteer, just so we're clear. I'm volunteering on all of this because I'm so committed to this organizing work. I want to hear from you all, and I want it to be from the people on the ground in Monmouth County, of which I'm one, but I'm one of hopefully 500 or 600 by the time we get going, who are speaking, and we're going to try to have all the voices heard. Does that help you answer? I'm not trying to avoid your question. I'm just trying to, if you go to Trinity Church in Asbury Park, if you go to the Lutheran Church in Red, they're all working on food in one way or another. They're running food pantries or they're doing food distribution. But, how do we support Fulfill? She got fired because she challenged the freeholders to give her money. Come on. We've got problems in Monmouth County. And, Ocean County was willing to give Fulfill money to be able to do food distribution, but Monmouth County wasn't.
To me,
that's the kind of an issue. That's to me an issue.
The bigger issues are people that don't know, and we don't know what that person's doing. They don't know what we're doing. And you shine a light on it, all of a sudden people know. And to me, these kinds of operations are basically trying to filter light to the best direction that needs to grow. Like you said, they're all doing food, but maybe no one is really focusing on affordable housing. Where is affordable housing in Monmouth County? Just knowing that, I mean, it is just like politics of saying, if we know, then there can be good conversation. If we don't, then there's a one-sided conversation and one is listening.
Right. And the way this would work for us is that those people who are interested in affordable housing would be then charged with researching what is the affordable housing that exists in Monmouth County.
And that would be a congregation initiative.
Well, it might be 5 congregations that have 3 or 4 lay people who work together in a variety of ways.
Okay.
That's my answer right now. It may
Thank
change.
you.
But
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so Carol, and then after Carol, William Field.
Hi, thank you for coming. I appreciate all that you've said, and I appreciate most, I think, the fact that you're a volunteer. That speaks volumes to what we are all doing here.
Mhm.
I want to just say that while our church is in Homedale, our entire congregation is not.
Correct.
And I, for one, am in Freehold Borough, and we are an entirely different bird than Homedale is.
Mhm.
And so when you mentioned affordable housing, I wondered if you'd done any work or had contact with Habitat for Humanity yet.
We've had contact with Habitat for Humanity in Hudson County.
Okay.
Our challenge is that we're talking about building 500 units of affordable housing. We're not talking about one at a time. And their model is great. I'm not trying to criticize their model. I'm just trying to help understand that when we do Nehemiah housing in Brooklyn or Baltimore, we're talking about a major development of affordable housing.
That's great. That's good. That's actually better than I thought.
Okay.
That's really great.
Well,
Thank
I'll
you.
go work with Habitat for Humanity anytime if they need help. I'm there. We've done it in Jersey City, but we're talking about a different model.
It's a different scale. Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
different scale.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, William, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you, Reverend. This is really, really exciting. And everybody else who's listening, I want to say the Industrial Areas Foundation, IAF, is probably one of the most important community organizing entities in the US. They don't come in and tell us what we're going to fix. They come in and say, hey, let's bring people together so that you can fix what you think needs to be fixed. I have taught classes where we've talked about various of the projects in Brooklyn and elsewhere in the country where IAF has found ways to bring power to those who have absolutely no power. They don't come in saying, here's your problem, here's how to fix it. They come in saying, hey, let's connect people and let's show you the power that you already have, but you don't know that you have. And so, Eric, when you're asking about what have you done, the answer really is, that doesn't matter. The answer is, what do we want to do? And the problems, we know the problems in Monmouth County. They are housing problems, affordable housing. We have one housing unit that we offer with the church that we have. We have food problems. We support 2 food pantries in various guises. But there are many problems beyond that. What do we want to work on? And who can we partner with? How can we learn how to solve those problems? That is what we're learning about tonight and going forward, I think. I'm not asking you a question, Jeff. I'm just saying that what you're doing is really, really, really empowering. It's hard for us to understand it because we're used to being told what the problem is and being asked to do what we can do. That's not what you're doing for us. You're listening to us as best you can. But we all know the problems that are out there. And Homedale, Freehold, I'm in Howell, which is the bottom end of Monmouth County. Red Bank, Asbury Park, the towns are very, very different. We have site segregation problems. We have affordability problems. And what do we want to do as a congregation, as people in the congregation, to find ways to help solve some of these problems? It's going to be a hard slog getting us mobilized and partner with people And that, I think, is where Geoff's volunteer time really may be most beneficial to us. All I want to say is, thank you, sir. This is potentially very, very, very exciting. Last comment that I want to make: we were in a church council meeting a few years ago when I was moderator, and an issue came up. No, let's back from that. So some years ago, but before your time here, the federal government closed a small military base in Homedale. And on that base, there were 4 empty officer housing units. And a few people wanted to turn those into affordable housing. And our pastor made a couple of efforts to do so. The town was vehemently opposed because affordable housing does not pay for the cost of its kids' educations. And the buildings were destroyed. They were flattened rather than allow a few families move in who would be under the affordable housing umbrella. That was heartbreaking to me and to a few others, but most of us didn't get it, didn't understand it, didn't really see any alternative because they cost tax dollars for us to educate. More recently, we've had similar situations where we want to do something, but we don't know how. And I'm hoping we can figure out how in a more concrete way by working with you and learning from you. And that's all I'm going to say tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Karen didn't tell me there'd be a cheerleader in the room.
Thank you, William. Okay, Eric and then Cynthia.
I hope you find that we're all cheerleaders. And I certainly want to thank you too, but I don't want to be misunderstood that I was concerned with what have you done, because I don't care what have you done. I care about what you're doing and how to get that information and how to access information of what you are doing is how we're going to solve the problem. But if we don't have anywhere to go to know what is being done, how we as people can't plug in. It's like there's an electric slot that's open and it says, come use my electricity, but I don't know, where it is in the room. So that's my point, because yes, I don't care what you've done in the past or, any of that. I want to know what we are doing. I want to know, how we all can get together. But most of all, we want to know how to help you and where the things that are really of interest to people that aren't in this little square right now can get excited, because we just have to tell them. And I would think that you'd see a lot more people wanting to plug in if they just knew how. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. And the how is, Liz will tell you, the how is that we are organizing in August training for the listening campaign. And the listening campaign will begin in September. And we will go for about 6 weeks of intensive work inside the congregations and inside the communities. So we are building organically. And you are one of the first congregations to actually put together a team like this, that someone in, I guess Michelle is going to decide how many of us will sign up for this August training and participate in doing a listening campaign. And the more people we get from a particular congregation, to go out and listen, the better off we'll be. And I'm challenging some of you to think about, going to the local Dunkin' Donuts or wherever and setting up a table in the morning and saying, I'm doing a listening campaign of the issues for Homedale. Come and talk to me and have a cup of coffee. So it's moving the church out into the community is what we're trying to do. Thank you, though. That's great. You will hear about what we're trying to do.
All right, Cynthia, go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, Geoff. I just want to say, it's not a question either. I just want to say thank you. I had met Bonnie Dorowski, from Grace Christian Church, who came to our Black Lives Matter presentation back in February, and she had helped link me to you and Frank McMillan, and you got back to us so quickly. And it's just so unfortunate that my personal schedule didn't allow me to join you on your Wednesday meetings. So I'm really glad that you're here, and I thank you for taking the time. And I just want to give a shout out to Liz Mueller and Karen Strickland, who were able to follow up and go to attend those sessions and bring you here. So that's all I wanted to say.
Well, you need to tell us when you have time availability and we'll organize a session for that time.
That's wonderful. My schedule's a little bizarre. It's more like
all right.
evenings, but if there's anything like that, I'm available.
Well, we're looking at some possibility in July. So let Liz know what might work for you in July and
Okay.
we can talk about it.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any questions? If you can't use the raise hand feature, please just unmute yourself and shout. Okay, and we are almost right on time. It's 8:02.
Can I just say one thing, Michelle?
Absolutely.
You know, we all have connections in other nonprofits or whatever. Like how can we help make the network bigger?
Well, we're inviting people to the table. So I would just ask if they are interested in coming to the table to participate in conversations. We do have a clergy table. We don't have a date for the next lay table. They've met in June, but get me names of people. I'm willing to do a one-on-one meeting like I did with some of you to get started. And we just begin the conversation. We will definitely pick up with serious meeting times in September. And we just need to invite people to the table and get me their names. And Liz has already talked about a group of clergy that she's working with up in the northern part of the county that we're going to try to get a meeting with. It's all relational meetings. I don't know how else to move forward with that. So
okay.
If you've got people that we should talk to, send us their names or send them to Liz and Liz can get them to me.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Liz, do you want to unmute and close us out?
Yeah, just to follow up on a couple of things that we've been talking about in terms of next steps. As Geoff mentioned, the goal would be for us to come, for a group of us, and I think we're talking, Geoff, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 to 10 people from within our church.
Yeah. Yes.
Who would receive training in August and September. And Cynthia, we're talking about trying to have one of those sessions being an evening one. But the training is, Geoff, 2, 3, how many hours of training?
It'll be about 90 minutes.
90 minutes of training and specific instructions. Grace Modla has already signed up. Thank you, Grace.
Right. To do the listening campaign. That's what
to do the listening campaign. Right. So what I want you to think about in the next couple of months is, take a look at this New Jersey Together website. Not just you, Eric, but everybody else. My guess is nobody made the click onto New Jersey Together. Please take a look at that website. I think that it's particularly interesting what's going on in Morris County right now, because they have just kind of officially mobilized. So right. They're like 9 months ahead of us. But it's a county that's demographically kind of similar to ours. And you can see the issues that they're choosing to work on. And you can also see some of the results. So, for example, affordable housing, of course, came up in Morris County as well. And the mayor of Morristown was too busy thinking about snow removal and funding for snow removal to really address affordable housing until this group began to put, pressure's the wrong word, but began to try to hold him accountable to deliver something in this area. And as a result of this fledgling organization in Morris County, steps have been taken, and he's committed Am I right, Jeff, to
Yeah,
providing,
he's made some commitments, absolutely.
to providing housing? So this works, but it works because we're stronger together, as the trite expression does. Anyway, so I want you all to think about, between now and say August, would you like to participate in this kind of a training session? And if you would, be in touch with me or Michelle or Karen Chesney or Karen Strickland, however you'd like to, and then we'll forward that information on. The second part is, Janice, we're well aware of the COG churches and the possibility of getting all of them involved. And we're also thinking about the Bayshore Ministerium. So as far as my experience with this group, Northern Monmouth is not as well represented as some of the other parts of the county. So this is a project that I think would be helpful it's not that people are being left out, it's just that we, given where Geoff lives and what's been going on, this Bayshore area is probably less represented at the moment, but that can change in a heartbeat. Anyway, Carol Schreier has just volunteered for the listening campaign, Geoff. So I think we're going to be fine. I think it's going to be an exciting project for our church. So I want everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Everybody knows how to find me. And we'll be meeting, our Social Justice Committee will be meeting again in July. So we'll probably talk a little more about this then. But this is all about coming on board. So please look at the website, and please, there's a ton of stuff you can listen to. New Jersey Nightly News has been covering this organization, plenty of things to listen to, so you can see what kinds of successes they've had elsewhere.
Liz, if I can just 1 second,
Yeah.
Geoff, just to clarify, the listening campaign training is going to be August and September?
Yeah, we're going to do two of them. The first one will be in August. We haven't set the September date yet, but we'll do the first one in August. We know that we're going to do one in early September, and we know that families that have children who are working and getting them back to school, the September date's not going to work for them. So we're particularly offering the August one for those whose September gets, it's a mess. I've raised children. September's impossible the first 2 weeks. And we want to get all of the training done before the Jewish holidays. That's the other piece that's going on, because we want all of them included in the training so that right after the Jewish holidays, we can kick the campaign off. That's the idea.
Okay, and that's 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, it'll be about 90 minutes. And we will get you the September date. We're actually, when Liz participates in the next 3 days of training, I think we'll probably end up with a date coming out of that people are comfortable with.
Okay, and there's also the conversational training, right, that you had mentioned for June and July, if anybody wanted to partake of that as well.
We have not set July dates yet.
Okay.
That will come. But if you want to take names, Michelle, and say these are people interested, we'll work on it. I would I don't know how many of you know what neighborhoods your congregation comes from, but maybe in July, as part of getting ready, you might want to find out how many different towns you're actually all from, and whether listening campaigns can be localized into some of those towns. And maybe there's another congregation in that town that's going to participate in the listening campaign, and some of you can work together across congregational lines in a local town. So like the Freehold, there's several congregations from Freehold that are involved in this, and maybe there's some partnership that can happen already in the listening campaign.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Well, we're past our time limit, and I think it's probably a good place to end our meeting tonight. So Geoff, thank you again.
You're welcome. It's great.
Coming. I'd like to close with a benediction from the United Church of Christ. Grant us, Lord God, a vision of your world as your love would have it. A world where the weak are protected and none go hungry or poor. A world where the riches of creation are shared and everyone can enjoy them. A world where different races and cultures live in harmony and mutual respect. A world where peace is built with justice and justice is guided by love. Give us the inspiration and courage to build it. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. It's been great
Thank
being with you.
everybody. Thanks
Thank you
again,
very
Jeff.
much. Take
Yeah.
care. Have a good night,
care.
everyone.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you.